being, but they were still flexible. Perhaps some ambiguity was necessary. The hunt was not yet universal. It was legal only in a single island republic, Esmeralda in the Caribbean, where it was not only the national pastime but also provided most of the income. This income came from tourists who flocked to the island from all over the world, some to hunt, others to watch the various contests around them. All took vicarious pleasure in the death of others, and an international audience could watch the infamous games with their shocking big payoff. Watch and enjoy. Hunters in the earliest days had to contend with a population not yet completely in favor of the hunt. Although most people found it attractive to one degree or another, the various forces of law and order disapproved and were constantly on the lookout for participants. The police back then tended to treat a hunter much like any other common criminal. After many centuries, we have rediscovered nature's way of keeping populations in hand. Nature does it the old-fashioned way, by killing people. So much of the literature in the 20th and 21st centuries had to do with lonely people growing older and eking out their miserable, solitary existences. That would be unthinkable nowadays. The level of the hunt has risen to such an extent that old people don't last long. They don't have the speed or agility to scramble away from the gunfire which fills our streets, as rain once did. Children, conversely, show themselves to be extremely adroit at staying out of the line of fire. Nobody says any longer, "When will the killing stop?" Now we know that the killing will stop only when life itself stops. Chapter 1. At the town meeting in September, the citizens of Keene Valley, New York, voted to arm Harold Erdman with the town's best handgun, a vintage Smith & Wesson .44, and send him south to the island of Esmeralda to enter the hunt. Harold had been picked because he had volunteered, had no living kin, was single, healthy, pretty good in a fight, and was considered honest enough to carry out his part of the bargain, namely, to send back 50% of his hunt prize money to the town, assuming he lived long enough to collect any. In order to get into the hunt, he'd first have to hitchhike and take buses down the American coastline to Miami. From there, he could just afford the airfare to Esmeralda, the small island in the southeastern corner of the Bahamas where the hunt was legal. The journey from upper New York State to Florida was known to be dangerous in the extreme. There were said to be bandits of incredible ferocity lurking along the way, men filled with bloodlust and delighting in cruelty. There were devastated regions where foul mists from long-buried industrial dumps burped noxious gases under a traveler's feet, as though the earth were trying to rid itself of its burden of concentrated chemicals and radioactive wastes. A burp like that could poison you in mid-stride, and you'd be stone dead before you hit the ground. And if you got by all that, there were still the rapacious towns of the South to contend with, places filled with scarcely human creatures who killed anyone they came across, took his belongings, and sometimes ate his flesh. That's what people said in the word-of-mouth travel advisories, by whose means fable is spread, and sometimes fact. Harold was not much bothered by these stories. He was willing to take a lot of risks to get out of this dying village wedged into a fold of the polluted Adirondacks. He wanted to do something with his life, and the hunt was the only chance open to him. Harold was large, but he moved lightly for a big man, and was faster than he looked. He was a big, round-faced, amiable-looking country boy, with an ingenious smile and calculating eyes. He had black, untrimmed hair that came down over the collar of his worn red plaid mackinaw, and a few days' stubble on his face. He was 28 years old at the time of his journey, and he looked like a bear who's been woken up before he's finished hibernating. Large and sleepy and sort of cute. Which goes to show how much you can judge by appearances.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.